The emergency beacon cut through the endless darkness of space like a scream in the night. Its signal traveled for days across the void before finally reaching the massive monitoring station orbiting Nexus Prime, the political heart of the galaxy. The station's sensors immediately locked onto the transmission. And within minutes, alarms were blaring throughout the complex. Commander Valtara stood in the center of the Galactic Council's emergency chamber, her tall, graceful form trembling. Despite her best efforts to maintain composure, her species, the Zephyrians, were known throughout the galaxy for their calm demeanor and logical thinking. They were diplomats, scientists, explorers. They were not warriors. And right now, that peaceful nature might doom them all. Her elongated fingers, each ending in delicate crystalline tips that could interface directly with their advanced technology, shook as she activated the holographic display. The images that appeared made even the seasoned council members gasp in horror. Entire worlds, once green and thriving, now appeared as barren gray spheres. Cities that had stood for millennia were gone, leaving only smooth, lifeless rock behind. "This is Commander Valtara of the Zephyrian Defense Fleet," she began, her voice carrying across subspace to every corner of the galaxy. The words felt like poison in her throat. In her 300 years of service, she had never imagined she would have to speak them. We require immediate assistance. The Devourers have awakened." Silence that followed was deafening. Then, like a dam bursting, the council chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives from dozens of species began shouting at once, their translators struggling to keep up with the torrent of panicked voices. The Devourers were more than just enemies. They were the stuff of nightmares. Ancient stories told of biomechanical entities that appeared from the dark spaces between stars, consuming everything in their path. They were said to be older than most civilizations, perhaps older than some stars themselves. For thousands of years they had remained dormant, and many had begun to believe they were nothing more than myths. "Possible," wheezed Counselor Drexani, his bulbous form quivering with fear. His species had survived 3 galactic wars, but even they trembled at the mention of the Devourers. The Devourers are legends, stories to frighten children. Valtara's secondary arms gestured to the holographic display, where real-time footage showed massive, insect-like machines the size of mountains moving across planetary surfaces. They moved with purpose, their segmented bodies shifting and adapting as they consumed everything organic in their path. "Does this look like a story to you, Counselor?" The footage was horrifying. The creatures, if they could be called creatures, flowed across landscapes like a living tide. They consumed forests in minutes, cities in hours. When they encountered the Zephyrian defense installations, the weapons simply bounced off their adaptive hulls. Energy shields that could stop planetary bombardments were absorbed and converted into power for the swarm. "Our most advanced fleets have been destroyed," Valtara continued, her voice cracking with the weight of loss. Each ship represented not just technology, but lives. Thousands of her people had died trying to stop these monsters. The Corvanian battlecruisers, the finest warships in the galaxy, lasted exactly 12 minutes against a single Devourer formation. The Altarian dreadnoughts, with their quantum disruptors and gravitational weapons, managed 18 minutes before they were completely consumed. Council Elder Thexmore, ancient even by the standards of his long-lived species, leaned forward in his floating chair. His 4 eyes, each capable of seeing different spectrums of light, studied the tactical displays with growing dread. "Commander, what exactly are you asking of us?" "Our combined fleets are already mobilizing. Every available ship is heading to your sector, and they will die just as quickly as ours did," Valtara replied, bitterly. "These creatures adapt faster than we can adjust our tactics. They learn from every weapon we use, every strategy we employ. By the time our reinforcements arrive, the Devourers will be ready for them." The Elder's expression grew grave. "Then what do you propose?" Eldora hesitated, knowing that her next words would either save her people or destroy what little credibility. The Zephyrians had left in galactic politics. There is one option, the Deathworlders, the humans from Sol 3. The reaction was immediate and explosive. The chamber fell into stunned silence, followed by an eruption of outraged voices. Some council members laughed, bitter, disbelieving laughter. Others began shouting protests. Every species in the galaxy knew about the humans. They were the violent newcomers from a world so hostile that most galactic citizens couldn't survive there for more than a few minutes. Their planet was a nightmare of extreme weather, deadly creatures, and toxic environments. The humans themselves were considered barely civilized barbarians who solved problems by hitting them with increasingly larger hammers. Absolutely not, Counselor Drexani snapped, his skin flushing the deep purple that indicated extreme agitation in his species. Those creatures are barely evolved savages. They still fight with projectile weapons and chemical explosives like primitives. They've been quarantined in their system for good reason. They wage war on their own planet, added another representative, her tentacles writhing with disgust. They fight each other constantly. They're dangerous, unpredictable, and violent. But Valtara stood her ground. Yes, they fight. And right now, that's more than the rest of us are doing. While we debate and plan and analyze, the Devourers are consuming world after world. The humans may be primitive, but they understand something. We've forgotten. Sometimes survival requires violence. Meanwhile, millions of light years away, Admiral Kang De-ho sat in his office aboard Earth's primary orbital defense platform. The structure was a masterpiece of human engineering, part space station, part fortress, part shipyard. It orbited Earth at the perfect distance to monitor all traffic in and out of the Sol system, while remaining close enough to provide planetary defense. Daiho was reviewing the morning patrol reports when Lieutenant Park Sojin burst through his office door without even bothering to knock. In the strict hierarchy of human military structure, this was almost unthinkable. Sojin was breathing hard, her usually perfect uniform disheveled, her eyes wide with excitement or fear, possibly both. "Sir," she gasped, trying to catch her breath. "We're receiving a transmission on the emergency diplomatic channel. It's from outside the solar system." Deho set down his reports and studied his aide carefully. In the 3 years since, humanity had developed faster than light travel. They had made numerous attempts to contact other civilizations. Every single attempt had been ignored. The galaxy, it seemed, wanted nothing to do with the violent apes from Sol 3. Now, for the first time, someone was calling them. "Are you certain it's legitimate?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "The signal is coming from the direction of the Andromeda sector, and it's using standard galactic communication protocols. They know we're here, and they want to talk." Deho stood and straightened. His uniform, whatever this was about, it was likely to be important. "Put it through to the main communications array. Full recording, and get me a translation matrix online." The main screen in his office flickered to life, and suddenly Deho found himself face to face with his first alien. Valtera's image was clear despite the vast distance, her exotic features drawn with exhaustion and something that looked remarkably like desperation. Her species was beautiful in an otherworldly way, with elongated limbs and crystalline fingertips that caught the light. "Humans of Earth," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation system. "I am Commander Valtera of the Zephyrian Defense Fleet. We need your help. Our worlds are being consumed by an ancient enemy, and our technologies are useless against them." Deho studied the alien commander carefully. After years of being ignored by the galactic community, he found it interesting that they were suddenly asking for help. "Commander Valtara, I appreciate you reaching out, but I have to ask, why should we help you? Your people and every other species in the galaxy have kept us isolated and quarantined for years. You've made it clear that you consider us dangerous primitives." Valtara's alien features showed what might have been shame. "Admiral, I know we have not treated your species fairly. We feared you because you were different, because you came from a world we couldn't understand. But right now, that difference might be the only thing that can save us all." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because, Admiral, if we fall, you're next. The Devourers consume everything organic, everything, and they're heading for your sector of the galaxy." The transmission ended, leaving Deho staring at a blank screen. Outside his office window, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, beautiful and peaceful from this distance. But he knew better than most how deceptive that appearance was. It was a world of storms and earthquakes, predators and plagues. A planet that had forged humanity in the fires of constant struggle. Maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what the galaxy needed right now. The emergency klaxons echoed through the corridors. Of Earth's most secure military facility, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, within 30 minutes of receiving Valterra's transmission, the planet's top military leaders were rushing through reinforced blast doors into the United Defense Council's war room. This underground chamber had been designed to survive anything, from nuclear war to asteroid impacts. But today, it would host humanity's first official meeting with an alien species. Admiral Kong Deho entered the room first, his weathered face showing the stress of command. Behind him came General Lee Minho, compact man whose calm demeanor hid a mind that had revolutionized modern warfare tactics. Dr. Yoon Heron followed, clutching a tablet filled with preliminary data about their mysterious visitors. Military's chief xenobiologist, she had spent years preparing for this moment. She had always imagined first contact would be more peaceful. The war room itself was impressive, a circular chamber with holographic displays, covering every surface. Banks of computers lined the walls, screens showing everything from global defense networks to deep space monitoring stations. At the center sat a massive table surrounded by chairs, each equipped with its own command console. This was where humanity's greatest military minds gathered during times of crisis. "Status report," Deho commanded, as he took his seat at the head of the table. Captain Park So-jin activated the main display, which immediately filled with star charts and tactical data. "We've confirmed the alien transmission's origin. Point it's coming from the Zephyrian sector, approximately 2,000 light-years from Earth. Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures consistent with large-scale warfare. Any threats to our system?" General Lee asked, his fingers already dancing across his command console. "None detected, sir. Whatever's happening out there hasn't reached us yet." Dr. Yoon looked up from her tablet. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the transmission data. The aliens, the Zephyrians, they're using quantum entanglement communication. That's technology we're still trying to perfect. These people are far more advanced than us. Which makes it even more interesting that they're asking for our help," Deho observed. "Activate the main holographic projector. Let's hear what they have to say." Lights dimmed as the room's central projector came online. Commander Valtara's image materialized in the center of the table, her alien features clear despite the vast distance. She looked exhausted, her normally pristine uniform torn and stained. Behind her, the background showed what appeared to be a military command center in chaos, with alien officers rushing back and forth. "Greetings, leaders of Earth," Valtara began, her voice carrying a weariness that transcended species barriers. "I am transmitting this message in real time through our quantum communication array. Time is critical, so I will be direct." She gestured, and the hologram expanded to show grainy footage of something that made even hardened military veterans gasp. Massive creatures, each the size of a city block, moved across planetary surfaces like mechanical locusts. They were clearly artificial, but they moved with organic fluidity. Their bodies were segmented like insects, covered in what appeared to be adaptive armor that shifted and changed as they moved. "These are the Devourers," Valtera explained, her voice heavy with loss. "They appeared 3 weeks ago in our outer colonies. At first we thought they were just another hostile species. We've dealt with those before. But these things, they're different." The footage showed one of the creatures approaching a Zephyrian city. The aliens' defensive systems activated energy shields that could withstand planetary bombardment, weapons that could crack moons. For a moment it seemed like the defenses were working, then the creature simply absorbed the energy attacks, its hull glowing brighter with each hit. "They move in coordinated swarms," Valtera continued. "Each unit can replicate itself using consumed biomass. We've watched them strip entire ecosystems bare in hours. They've destroyed 47 worlds in the past week alone." General Lee leaned forward, his tactical mind already working. 47 worlds in 7 days? That's nearly 7 worlds per day. What's their average consumption time per planet? It varies by planetary size and population, but typically between 8 and 12 hours for complete biological consumption, Veltara replied, impressed by the quick calculation. Dr. Yoon was studying the creature's movement patterns on her. Tablet, Commander. These replication patterns they're following, they're not purely mechanical. There's a biological component to their behavior. Tell me, what exactly powers these things? What's their primary energy source? Veltara looked confused by the question. I don't understand what you mean. They consume organic matter, plants, animals, even bacterial life. But that's not what I'm asking, Dr. Yoon pressed, her scientific curiosity overriding diplomatic protocol. Biomass conversion is extremely inefficient for space travel. How do they power their movement between star systems? How do they maintain their technology during long journeys through the void? The alien commander was silent for a long moment, and when she spoke, there was embarrassment in her voice. We hadn't considered that aspect. Our focus has been on stopping them, not understanding their operational parameters. Admiral Deho exchanged meaningful glances with his officers. This was already revealing something important about how the galaxy's advanced species approached problems. Commander, with all due respect, how exactly have your forces been engaging these devourers? With our most sophisticated weaponry, Veltara replied, straightening with pride. Plasma cannons that can melt through solid titanium, quantum disruptors that can tear apart matter at the subatomic level, gravitational mines that can crush starships like tin cans. We deployed everything in our arsenal. When those weapons proved ineffective, we conducted strategic withdrawals to preserve our remaining forces and prevent unnecessary casualties. The silence in the human war room was profound. Finally, General Lee spoke, his voice gentle but firm. Commander, on Earth, when we encounter a superior enemy, we don't retreat and regroup. We adapt. We improvise. We use everything around us as a weapon. Sometimes the environment itself becomes our ally. Veltara's alien features showed confusion, but these creatures are unstoppable. They adapt to any weapon we use against them. Nothing is truly unstoppable, Deho said firmly, standing and walking to the holographic display. There's always a weakness, always a way to fight back. The key is thinking differently than your enemy expects. He turned to his staff. Captain Park, I want a complete tactical analysis of their attack patterns. Look for behavioral consistencies, energy signatures, anything that might give us an advantage. Dr. Yoon, start working on their biology. If they're part organic, they have vulnerabilities we can exploit. General Lee, begin mobilizing the Third Fleet. Captain Park looked up from her console with surprise. Sir, the Third Fleet. That's our oldest battle group. Those ships are 20 years old, their weapons. Systems are outdated by current standards. Exactly, Deho smiled. But it was a predator's smile that would have been familiar to any apex predator on Earth. These devourers have adapted to fight advanced galactic technology. Let's see how they handle obsolete human stubbornness within hours. Earth's military machine was moving with the efficiency that had made humanity the dominant species on their hostile world. Shipyards that had been on routine maintenance schedules suddenly blazed with activity. Supply depots that stored old ammunition and spare parts found themselves emptied as quartermasters prepared for a different kind of war. The Third Fleet had earned its nickname the Iron Dogs during the Martian colonial wars. These were ships, built for endurance rather than elegance, designed to keep fighting even when everything that could break had broken. They were ugly, angular vessels that looked more like industrial equipment than warships, but they had one advantage that the galaxy's sleek advanced fleets lacked. They were built by people who understood that sometimes surviving meant being too tough to kill. Commander Veltara watched through the quantum link as the human ships launched from their orbital yards. She had expected to see vessels similar to other galactic fleets, smooth, graceful ships that looked like works of art. Instead, she saw what appeared to be flying fortresses, all sharp angles and heavy armor plating. Admiral, she called out, concern evident in her voice. Shouldn't you deploy your most advanced fleet? These ships look primitive. Daeho, now aboard the flagship Busan, looked at the alien commander through the communication screen. Commander, on Earth we have a saying, the best tool is the one that gets the job done. Our newest ships are fast, precise, and beautiful. But sometimes you don't need precise. Sometimes you need something that can take a beating and keep fighting. He gestured to the armored bulk of his flagship. These ships were built to fight in asteroid fields, in the radiation zones around gas giants, in places where your advanced technology would fail. They're not pretty, but they're survivors. As the human fleet formed up and prepared for hyperspace jump, Dr. Yoon transmitted her preliminary analysis. Admiral, I've been studying the Devourer footage. They're definitely biomechanical hybrids, but their organic components follow Earth-like biological patterns. That means they might be vulnerable to Earth-based biological warfare. Warfare? Valtara sounded shocked. That's considered a war crime by galactic law. Commander General Lee replied, these things just consumed 47 worlds and killed billions of sentient beings. I think we're past worrying about galactic law. As the human fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Daeho had one final transmission. For the alien commander, Valtera, I want you to understand something. Humanity has survived on a world that's been trying to kill us since we first evolved. We've fought ice ages, volcanic winters, asteroid impacts, and each other. We've learned that survival isn't about having the best technology or the most elegant solutions. The hyperspace engines began to charge, filling space around the fleet with crackling energy. Survival is about refusing to give up, no matter how impossible the odds seem. These devourers may be ancient and powerful, but they've never fought. Someone who's spent their entire evolutionary history learning how to turn disadvantages into weapons. The human fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a galaxy that was about to discover what Deathworld ingenuity really meant. The human fleet tore through hyperspace, like bullets fired from the barrel of God's own rifle. Bridge of the battleship Busan, Admiral Daeho gripped the command rail as reality twisted around them. The hyperspace tunnel was a kaleidoscope of colors that human eyes weren't meant to see. But after 3 years of faster-than-light travel, most crews had gotten used to the nausea and disorientation. 30 seconds to hyperspace exit, announced navigator Lee Jung-soo, his voice steady despite the churning in his stomach. All ships reporting ready for combat emergence. Daeho nodded, studying the tactical display that showed their fleet. Formation: 12 heavy cruisers, 8 destroyers, and 16 frigates, not the largest force humanity had ever assembled. But every ship was crewed by veterans who had cut their teeth fighting pirates in the asteroid belt and rebels on Mars. These weren't parade ground soldiers. They were fighters who understood that space combat was brutal, chaotic, and unforgiving. Remember, Daeho broadcast to the entire fleet, we're going into this blind. We don't know their exact numbers, their defensive positions, or their capabilities. What we do know is that they've never fought humans before. That's our advantage. The hyperspace tunnel began to collapse around them, reality reasserting itself in a shower of exotic particles. One by one, the human ships dropped back into normal space at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. What they saw there made even veteran spacers catch their breath. The system's fourth planet, Harvest Prime, had once been a garden world. The Zephyrians had terraformed it over centuries, turning it into an agricultural paradise that fed dozens of colonies. Now, it looked like a cancer patient in the final stages of the disease. Vast strips of gray, lifeless rock scarred the surface where the Devourers had consumed everything organic. The planet's blue oceans were turning brown as microscopic life died en masse. Sweet mother of ... Captain Kim Tae-young whispered from his position at the weapons console. There must be thousands of them. The Devourers covered the planet's surface like a living carpet. Each individual unit was massive, roughly the size of a 40-story building with segmented bodies that constantly shifted and adapted. They moved with the fluid coordination of a swarm intelligence, flowing across continents like mechanical locusts. Some were actively consuming biomass, their bodies glowing with internal energy as they processed organic matter. Others were various stages of replication, growing new units from the consumed material. But it was the space-based units that truly commanded attention. Hundreds of Devourer ships hung in orbit around the dying planet, each one a nightmarish fusion of organic curves and mechanical precision. They were beautiful in their own terrible way, their hulls shimmering with adaptive armor that constantly shifted between different configurations. Admiral Lieutenant Commander Shin Bawar called from the tactical station, her voice tight with controlled fear. "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the orbital units. They're launching interceptors. Estimated time of arrival for minutes." The interceptors were smaller than the main ships, but no less terrifying. They moved through space like living things, their forms constantly shifting as they adapted to the vacuum environment. Some sprouted solar collectors to gather energy, others extended sensor arrays that swept the area for threats, said surprising his bridge crew with his calm tone. "All ships, execute Plan Alpha. Remember, we're not here to win a fair fight. We're here to do what humans do best: cheat." The human fleet immediately split into 3 distinct groups. The main battle line, consisting of the heaviest ships, led by the Busan, began what appeared to be a direct assault approach toward the planet. It was exactly what any conventional military force would do: mass their firepower and punch through the enemy line. Meanwhile, 2 smaller groups of frigates and destroyers peeled off toward the flanks, using the system's dense asteroid belt as cover. To the Devourer's sensors, it looked like a standard pincer movement, textbook tactics that any spacefaring civilization would recognize. Sir Kim reported from his console, "The Devourers are responding exactly as predicted. They're adapting to our approach vector and forming a defensive screen. Their ships are reconfiguring for energy weapon absorption." "Perfect! Launch the decoy drones." This was where human ingenuity began to show. Hundreds of small drones launched from concealed bays throughout the human fleet. Each drone was broadcasting the electromagnetic signature of a full-sized human. Warship radar returns, engine emissions, weapon signatures, even the specific resonance patterns of human artificial gravity generators. To the Devourer sensors, it appeared as though a massive fleet of over 200 ships was bearing down on them. The Devourer response was immediate and overwhelming. Every orbital unit turned to face this apparent megafleet, their adaptive systems already beginning to configure countermeasures for human weapons they had never actually encountered. The interceptors adjusted their flight paths, spreading out to engage what they believed were dozens of incoming threats. "Oh," Deho ordered quietly. The real attack came from a direction the Devourers had never considered. "Commander O.J. Sung's vessel Gangnung wasn't technically a warship at all. It was a mining vessel, designed for asteroid extraction in the outer solar system. For the past hour, while the main fleet had been positioning itself, had been using his ship's industrial mining lasers to carefully carve chunks of debris from the system's outer asteroid belt. The mining charges that followed weren't military weapons, they were industrial explosives designed to crack apart mountains of space rock. But when those charges detonated, they accelerated thousands of tons of asteroid debris directly into the Devourer formation. The improvised kinetic barrage struck like the hammer of an angry god. "Direct hits confirmed," Shin reported, her voice rising with excitement. Multiple Devourer units showing critical damage. Their adaptive shielding systems are overloading, trying to compensate for high-velocity kinetic impacts. The Devourers had been designed to handle energy weapons, plasma attacks, and sophisticated military technology. Their adaptive systems could absorb and redirect almost any form of directed energy. But they had never encountered an enemy primitive, enough to simply throw rocks at them at significant fractions of the speed of light. The alien ships began rapidly adapting, their hulls thickening and hardening to resist kinetic impacts. New defensive systems emerged from their biomechanical structures, point defense lasers to vaporize incoming debris, magnetic fields to deflect metallic projectiles, even some kind of gravitational manipulation to alter the trajectory of incoming objects. But while they were adapting to the kinetic threat, they had fallen completely into the human trap. Their energy absorption systems were offline, their weapons were reconfiguring, and their formation was scattered by the debris impacts. All Ships, Deho commanded, his voice carrying across the fleet communications network. Fire everything we've got. What followed would have seemed laughably primitive to most galactic civilizations. The human fleet unleashed a barrage of conventional explosives, armor-piercing projectiles, chemical rockets, and even old-fashioned nuclear warheads. By the standards of galactic warfare, it was like attacking a modern tank with muskets and cannons. But the weapons were deployed with a creativity and tactical sophistication that the Devourer's adaptive systems simply couldn't process fast enough. Captain Li Yanji's destroyer Daegu launched a spread of missiles that appeared to completely miss their targets, sailing past the Devourer formation without detonating. The enemy point defense systems ignored them as non-threats. The missiles weren't targeting the Devourer ships at all. Their target was Harvest Prime's upper atmosphere. The chemical warheads detonated in a carefully calculated pattern, each explosion designed to trigger a specific atmospheric reaction. The planet's oxygen-rich atmosphere, already destabilized by the massive ecological damage below, ignited in a chain reaction that turned the entire upper atmosphere into a burning hell. Atmospheric ignition confirmed, Dr. Yoon's voice crackled. Over the communication system from her position aboard the fleet's mobile laboratory ship, we're reading temperatures of approximately 3,000 degrees Celsius. The entire upper atmosphere is now a plasma field. The Devourers on the planet's surface found themselves trapped in an inferno of their own making. Their adaptive biology, evolved over eons to handle energy weapons and technological attacks, had no answer for the planet's own atmosphere being weaponized against them. Some units tried to burrow underground, others attempted to launch themselves into orbit, but the plasma field extended far enough into space to catch most of them. They're adapting again, Shin warned, monitoring the enemy response. Deploying heat-resistant modifications. Some units are showing thermal tolerance improvements of over 400%. Excellent, Deho smiled grimly. That means they're diverting energy and processing power from offensive systems to defensive modifications. All ships concentrate fire on the orbital units, drive the survivors down into that atmospheric furnace. The human fleet pressed their attack with a ferocity that clearly shocked the Devourers. When the Bizon's main weapons were damaged by return fire, Captain Kim simply rerouted power through the ship's industrial fabrication systems, turning manufacturing lasers into makeshift weapons. When the frigate Mokpo lost its engines to a Devourer energy beam, Captain Ru Sung-min used the ship's momentum to ram directly into an enemy vessel, detonating his remaining missiles on impact. The destroyer Olsen took a hit that knocked out all primary systems, leaving the ship drifting in space. But the crew, led by Captain Park Dong-sik, wasn't ready to give up. Using emergency compressed air systems and manual firing mechanisms, they continued launching torpedoes by hand, their crew working in vacuum suits to manually load and aim each shot. Sir Kim reported, checking his tactical display. We're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian fleet. They're asking if we require assistance. Deho looked at the main tactical display, where the Devourer formation was clearly in disarray. The adaptive creatures were retreating toward the outer system, their coordination broken by tactics they simply couldn't predict or counter fast enough. Tell them we appreciate the offer, but we've got this handled. However, we could use some help with search and rescue operations. We've got a lot of floating wreckage out there, and some of our people might still be alive. As the human fleet began regrouping and conducting damage assessment, Commander Veltara's image appeared on the main communication screen. Her alien features showed a mixture of amazement and confusion that transcended species barriers.
Admiral?
Deho, she began, her voice filled with wonder that was extraordinary. But I must ask, how did you know to target the planet's atmosphere? That tactic is not in any of our military databases. Deho, his uniform torn and his face streaked with smoke from a small bridge fire, looked directly at the alien commander. Veltara, humans have been fighting our own planet for our entire evolutionary history. Earth has tried to kill us with ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plague, famine, natural disasters we don't even have names for, we learned. long ago that the environment isn't just a battlefield, it's the most powerful weapon available if you know how to use it. But how does that apply to space combat? The Devourers are powerful, ancient, and incredibly adaptive. But they think. Like predators, they're used to being the biggest, strongest thing in any given situation. They've never fought someone who thinks like prey. He paused, letting that sink in. The difference between a predator and prey isn't strength, Commander. It's desperation. And desperate creatures are the most dangerous opponents in the universe. Victory at Kepler 442 had sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For the first time in galactic history, someone had not just survived an encounter with the Devourers, they had actually beaten them. Word spread through quantum communication networks faster than the speed of light itself. The primitive Deathworlders from Sol 3 had done something that the galaxy's most advanced civilizations couldn't manage. Within 3 weeks, the human fleet had transformed from a desperate rescue mission into the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Ships arrived daily from Earth, Mars, the Jupiter orbital stations, and even the remote mining colonies in the Kuiper Belt. Each vessel brought with it crews who had heard the call and volunteered to fight an enemy they had never seen. 4 people they had never met. Admiral Deho stood in the command center of the Sol, humanity's newest and most powerful dreadnought. The ship had been rushed to completion in the orbital shipyards above Earth, its construction crews working around the clock to finish what would become the flagship of humanity's first interstellar war fleet. The tactical center was a marvel of human engineering, a spherical chamber, where holographic displays surrounded the command staff, giving them a complete three-dimensional view of the battlefield. The display currently showed the Andromeda sector, where long-range sensors had detected something that chilled the blood of every military analyst who saw it. The Devourers weren't just randomly consuming worlds anymore, they were organizing. Thousands of the massive biomechanical entities had gathered around a single planet, an ancient world called Primordial that predated most known civilizations. Status report, Deho commanded as his senior staff filed into the briefing room. Captain. Park So-jin activated her datapad, her expression grim. Admiral, our intelligence drones have confirmed our worst fears. The Devourers have been absorbing more than just biomass from their victims. They've somehow integrated technology from 17 different species into their own systems. Adaptive capabilities are now far beyond what we faced at Kepler 442. General Lee Min-ho leaned forward, studying the tactical displays. Our hit-and-run tactics worked perfectly when they were scattered across multiple systems. But now that they're consolidated, they're starting to predict our attack patterns. 3 of our raids in the past week have walked straight into traps. Dr. Yoon Haren looked up from her research tablet, where she had been analyzing data from captured Devourer samples. Admiral, I've made a breakthrough in understanding their biology. These creatures aren't purely mechanical constructs like we initially thought. They're incredibly sophisticated hybrids, biological neural networks providing adaptability and learning capability. Integrated with mechanical systems that provide structure and processing power. What does that mean for us tactically? Deho asked. Right. It means they have the same fundamental vulnerabilities as any biological system. They require specific nutrients to function. They can be infected by biological agents, and their organic components can be poisoned or diseased. Commander Veltara, who had been quietly observing from the corner of the room, stepped forward with obvious alarm. Dr. Yoon, are you seriously suggesting that we attempt to poison an entire star system? The ecological damage would be catastrophic. Poison in the traditional sense, Dr. Yoon corrected, her scientific excitement overriding diplomatic concerns. I'm talking about introducing a targeted biological infection. The Devourers absorb organic matter completely indiscriminately. They don't have the evolutionary experience to distinguish between food and pathogens. If we could engineer a biological agent that their systems would absorb but couldn't process, General Lee immediately grasped the implications. We'd need to deliver it directly to their central coordination system. According to our intelligence reports, Primordial is defended by over 10,000 individual Devourer units. That's more firepower than the entire Galactic Council fleet could handle. Then, we don't fight them, head-on, Deho decided, his mind already working on the tactical problem. We go around them, make them look the wrong way, while we slip a knife between their ribs. The plan that emerged over the next several hours was audacious even by the standards of a species that had earned its reputation for creative problem-solving. Using massive mining charges salvaged from asteroid belt operations and supplemented with nuclear warheads from Earth's strategic reserve, it would artificially destabilize the primordial system's asteroid belt. The resulting debris field would be large enough to hide an entire fleet, while also providing cover for a small infiltration team. "This is madness," Valtara protested when she heard the full plan. "Admiral, you're proposing to sacrifice your entire fleet as a diversion?" "Casualties will be enormous," Commander Deho replied patiently. "You're misunderstanding the plan. We're not sacrificing our fleet. We're making the Devourers think we're sacrificing our fleet. The key to any successful deception is selling it completely if we don't. Believe we're desperate. Neither will they." The preparations took 2 days. Every available mining ship in human space was pressed into service, their industrial equipment modified for military use. The plan required precise timing. The asteroid belt would only provide adequate cover for a limited time before the Devourers adapted to the new conditions. Meanwhile, Dr. Yoon worked frantically in her mobile laboratory aboard the research vessel. Daejin. The biological weapon she was developing was based on a modified Earth bacterium, one of the hardy microorganisms that had survived in Earth's most extreme environments. The modification was elegant in its simplicity. The bacteria would treat the Devourer's organic neural tissue as a food source, spreading through their biological networks like wildfire. The beauty of this approach, she explained to her research team, is that it exploits their greatest strength against them. Their adaptive systems are designed to integrate new biological material. They won't recognize our bacteria as a threat until it's already spread throughout their entire network. The battle for Primordial began at 0800 hours. Standard Earth time, the human fleet, now reinforced by volunteer ships from a dozen different species who had heard about humanity's success, faced the largest concentration of Devourer forces ever recorded. The enemy formation was a nightmare made manifest. Thousands of writhing biomechanical entities stretching across hundreds of thousands of kilometers of space, their adaptive hulls shimmering with absorbed technologies from countless conquered civilizations. All ships, Deho broadcast across the fleet communication network. Remember our objective. We're not here to win this battle through force of arms. We're here to buy time and sell a performance. Make them believe we're desperate enough to throw everything we have at them in one final assault. The human fleet began its approach in perfect formation. Classic frontal assault that any military academy in the galaxy would have recognized. Ships arranged by class and firepower advancing in orderly waves, with their weapons charging and their shields at maximum power. To the Devourer's sensors, it looked exactly like what it was supposed to look like, a desperate last stand by primitives who didn't know any better tactics. The Devourer response was immediate and overwhelming. The entire swarm began reconfiguring itself into a defensive formation, their biomechanical hulls adapting to counter the energy signatures of human weapons. Massive weapon systems emerged from their organic structures, ready to annihilate the approaching fleet. But while 10,000 Devourer units focused their attention on the obvious threat, Captain Kim Tae-young's stealth ship Incheon slipped through the artificially created debris field like a shadow. The vessel had been designed for deep space reconnaissance, its hull coated with materials that absorb sensor radiation and its engines designed for silent running. On board, Dr. Yoon and her infiltration team prepared for what might be humanity's most crucial mission. Target acquired, Kim reported quietly from the pilot station. Devourer command vessel is dead ahead. The command ship was unlike anything in human experience. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of the largest human dreadnought, and it pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to follow some alien logic. The hull was a constantly shifting maze of organic curves and mechanical precision, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. "Remember the mission parameters?" Dr. Yoon told her team as they prepared for boarding. We have one chance to introduce the bacterial agent directly into their central neural network. If we fail, the entire galaxy pays the price. Marine Sergeant Ru Donghian checked his equipment one final time. His weapon was a modified chemical sprayer loaded with Earth-based acid compounds, primitive by galactic standards, but effective against organic targets. Doctor, if this biological weapon of yours doesn't work, it will work, Sergeant, Dr. Yun replied with absolute conviction. Earth bacteria has been evolving and fighting for survival for over 3 billion years. These devourers are ancient and powerful, but they've never encountered anything like terrestrial microorganisms. They have no evolutionary defense against our particular brand of biological warfare. The enchant attached itself to the command ship's hull using magnetic clamps, the sound of metal on biomechanical material echoing through the ship's corridors. The boarding operation began immediately. Speed was essential. As the devourers would eventually detect the intrusion, Ru's team moved through the alien ship's corridors like ghosts, their Earth-trained combat instincts serving them well in the biomechanical maze. The devourers' internal defense systems had been designed to repel energy weapons and technological threats, but they were completely unprepared for humans using simple chemical weapons and biological agents. The ship's interior was a nightmare. Fusion of living tissue and mechanical components. Walls pulsed with organic rhythms while mechanical systems hummed with alien energy. Navigation required following the bioluminescent patterns that led toward the ship's central core, a massive chamber where the creature's neural network coordinated the activities of the entire swarm. Target chamber ahead, Ru reported as they approached the core. Heavy organic activity detected. The central core was a sight that would haunt the dreams of everyone who saw it. A massive brain-like structure, easily the size of a city block, pulsed with electrical activity as it processed information from thousands of individual devourer units. Organic neural pathways stretched in all directions, carrying data and commands throughout the ship and beyond to the rest of the swarm. Deploying payload now, Dr. Yun announced, activating the bacterial delivery system she had developed. Modified Earth bacteria was injected directly into the central neural mass, where it would begin its work immediately. The effect was almost instantaneous. The command ship shuddered as the bacterial infection began consuming its organic neural tissue. The bacteria spread through the biological networks like wildfire, disrupting communication pathways and destroying the coordination systems that held the swarm together. It's working, Kim reported from the enchant. I'm reading massive system. Failures throughout the devourer formation. They're losing swarm cohesion. Across the battlefield, the human fleet watched in amazement as the seemingly invincible devourers began to falter. Their perfect coordination dissolved into chaos as individual units lost contact with the central command structure. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly began colliding with each other. Weapon systems that had been targeting human vessels with deadly precision began firing randomly or not at all. All ships pressed the attack, Deho ordered, his voice carrying across the communication network to every human vessel in the fleet. They're vulnerable now. Hit them with everything we've got. The tide of battle turned in minutes from human forces, reinforced by alien fleets that had been racing to join the fight, pressed their advantage against an enemy that could no longer coordinate its defense. Individual devourer units, cut off from their collective intelligence, were systematically destroyed by focused fire from multiple ships, as the last devourer vessel exploded in a brilliant cascade of light and energy. Cheers erupted across the combined fleet. The ancient threat that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia had been brought down not by superior firepower or advanced technology, but by the ingenuity and determination of a species that had learned to survive on a world that had been trying to kill them since the day they first evolved, the Great Hall of the Galactic Council on Nexus. Prime had never hosted a ceremony quite like this one. For thousands of years, the chamber had been the site of diplomatic negotiations, trade agreements, and the occasional declaration of war between civilized species. But today, it was packed with representatives from every corner of known space, all gathered to witness something unprecedented, the formal recognition of humanity as the saviors of the galaxy. Admiral Kong Deho stood at the center of the massive chamber, feeling somewhat overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the architecture around him. The council chamber was designed to accommodate dozens of different species with varying atmospheric requirements, gravity preferences, and sensory needs. The result was a space that felt more like a cathedral than a government building, with soaring arches that disappeared into misty heights and holographic displays that showed real-time feeds from across the galaxy. 6 months had passed since. The Battle of Primordial and the aftermath had transformed not just humanity's place in the galaxy, but the entire political structure of known civilization. The Devourer threat had forced species that had maintained cold diplomatic relations for centuries to work together in ways they never had before. More importantly, it had shattered the galaxy's assumptions about what constituted advanced civilization. Dr. Yoon Heron stood beside the Admiral, her simple Earth-made uniform contrasting sharply with the elaborate, ceremonial garments worn by most of the alien dignitaries. She had become something of a celebrity throughout galactic space, the human scientist who had found a way to defeat an enemy that had stumped the galaxy's greatest minds. Universities from a dozen different worlds had offered her research positions, but she had politely declined them all. Earth, she said, still had plenty of mysteries to solve. Council Elder Thexmore rose from his floating platform, his ancient form moving with the careful dignity that came from centuries of diplomatic service. His species, the Vorthok, were among the oldest in the galaxy, and their four-eyed vision could perceive spectrums of light that most other species couldn't even imagine. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of galactic authority. Admiral Deho the Elder began, his voice amplified by translation systems that converted his natural harmonics into something resembling human speech. In the name of the Galactic Council and all free peoples of the galaxy, we offer our most profound gratitude for humanity's service during the Devourer War. Your species has saved countless, billions of lives and preserved civilizations that have existed for millennia. Deho nodded respectfully, but his response showed the characteristic directness that had made him effective as a military commander. Elder Thexmore, the gratitude is mutual. I want to make something clear. This victory belongs to everyone who fought in this war. The Zephyrians provided crucial intelligence about Devourer movements and tactics. The Altarians supplied resources and logistical support that kept our fleets operational. The Corvanians opened their shipyards to repair our damaged vessels. Humanity simply did what we do best. We adapted to the situation and refused to give up. From the Zephyrian delegation, Commander Veltara stepped forward. The alien officer who had first contacted Earth looked dramatically different from the desperate, exhausted figure who had pleaded for human assistance. 6 months of working alongside human military advisors had transformed not just her tactical thinking, but her entire approach to leadership. Her uniform now bore insignia that combined traditional Zephyrian designs with human military traditions. Admiral Veltara announced, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. The Zephyrian people have voted unanimously to bestow upon you the title of Honorary Defender of the Rim. This is the highest honor we can offer to someone not born of our species. In our entire history, it has been granted only 3 times. Deho looked genuinely moved by the gesture. But his response reflected the values that had made humanity effective in this war. Commander, I'm deeply honored, but I cannot accept recognition that rightfully belongs to my entire species. Every human who volunteered for this war knew they might not return home to Earth. They fought not for glory or recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. That's not heroism. That's just what humans do when faced with a threat to innocent people. Dr. Yoon stepped forward, her scientific mind eager to share the discoveries that had emerged from studying captured Devourer technology. Honored elders, if I may, I'd like to present our research findings about the true nature of the Devourer threat. What we've learned changes our understanding of galactic history itself. The chamber's holographic displays activated, showing detailed anatomical scans of Devourer biomechanical systems. The Devourers weren't originally weapons of war. They were an ancient terraforming system, designed by a civilization that vanished long before most of our current species evolved. Their creators built them to adapt to any environmental challenge and overcome any obstacle in preparing worlds for colonization. Captain Park Sojin, now bearing the insignia of a full admiral herself, added to the explanation. This explains their incredible adaptability and their relentless consumption patterns. They were designed to handle any environmental challenge, to adapt to any threat, and to never stop working until their task was complete. The problem was that their creators never programmed them with shutdown protocols. They just kept going long after their original purpose was fulfilled. Elder Thexmore's 4 eyes focused intently on the data displays. And now they have been permanently stopped, thanks to what you humans call Deathworld ingenuity. The Council has reached a historic decision regarding humanity's place in galactic civilization. The massive chamber fell completely silent.
Representatives
from hundreds of different species turned their attention to the ancient elder, knowing that whatever was about to be announced would reshape the political landscape of known space. Humanity has proven itself not merely as warriors, but as protectors of galactic civilization itself. Therefore, we hereby offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities that such membership entails. You will have a permanent seat on the Council, with full voting rights on all matters of galactic importance. Deho exchanged glances with his senior officers before responding. The moment was historic, but his military training made him focus on practical considerations. Elder, we are deeply honored by this offer, but we must state our conditions for acceptance. Speak them. First, we propose the establishment of a joint galactic defense force. The Devourers may be gone, but the galaxy is vast and full of unknown threats. We need to be prepared for whatever comes next. Council agrees to this proposal. Second, we want to share our military training and tactical knowledge with any species willing to learn. The unconventional tactics that defeated the Devourers can be taught to anyone willing to think beyond traditional military doctrine. This proposal is also accepted. And third, Deho smiled, showing the warmth that had made him popular among alien allies. We want to establish comprehensive cultural exchange programs. The galaxy has been separated by fear and misunderstanding for too long. It's time we all got to know each other as friends and allies rather than strangers. Elder Thexmore's salient features arranged themselves into what might have been a smile. Admiral, I believe we are witnessing the beginning of a new era for galactic civilization. 1 year later, the transformed landscape of galactic civilization was on full display at the first Joint Galactic Defense Force graduation ceremony held on Earth itself. The ceremony took place at the newly constructed Interspecies Military Academy in the Colorado Rockies, where cadets from dozens of different worlds had trained together for the past year. The sight was remarkable. Hundreds of graduates from species that had never worked together before, all wearing the same uniform design that combined human practicality with alien technological improvements. Tall, graceful Zephyrians stood beside compact, crystalline Altarians. Aquatic Corvanians wore specially designed environmental suits that allowed them to participate alongside oxygen-breathing species. Admiral Deho, wearing the insignia of Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense, addressed the assembled graduates. His words were translated into dozens of languages simultaneously, but his message was clear in any tongue. Today you join a tradition that spans species and worlds. You are the guardians of galactic civilization, the protectors of the innocent, and the shield that stands between order and chaos. In the front row, Commander Valterra stood proudly with her newly trained Zephyrian unit. They had learned human-style tactics alongside their advanced technology, creating a hybrid approach that was proving remarkably effective in training exercises. Behind her, officers from across the galaxy mingled freely, sharing stories and comparing techniques that would have been impossible just 2 years earlier, as the ceremony concluded and the new graduates dispersed to their assignments across the galaxy. Deho found himself looking up at the star-filled sky above Earth, somewhere out there in the cosmic darkness. Other ancient threats might still be sleeping, waiting for their chance to emerge and threaten galactic civilization. But the galaxy was no longer the same vulnerable collection of isolated civilizations that had been nearly destroyed by the Devourers. The human ships of the Galactic Defense Force now patrolled the dangerous rim territories their crews trained. In the uniquely human art of turning every disadvantage into an opportunity, they carried with them the spirit of a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history learning to survive on a world that had been trying to kill them. And they had taught that spirit to allies from across the stars and deep in the unexplored regions of space, if any ancient horrors still stirred in their eons-long slumber. They would find that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. It was no longer a scattered collection of sophisticated but vulnerable civilizations waiting to be consumed by whatever emerged from the dark. Between the stars, it was a community of warriors, taught by Deathworlders, to fight like their very existence depended on it, because as humans had learned long ago on their hostile homeworld, it always did. The end.